Entitled, How Should I React When My Kid Lies or Alters the Truth? My name is Dr. Elizabeth Lombardo, or Dr. E, as my clients like to call me. So we're going to look at how you can have the tools to best interact with your child when they are not telling the truth. A couple things to keep in mind. A couple of considerations. Everyone lies at some point in their life, right? In fact, research shows that adults lie on an average of 1 to 2 times per day. Every teenager lies, right? Every teenager lies, even though when they know it's wrong. The ability to lie begins in toddlerhood and surges during late adolescence. And this increase is probably due because this is when teens are asserting their independence from their parents. However, as teens gain more freedom in young adulthood, they actually don't lie as much and they're less tolerant of lying. And there's usually a positive motivation for the lie. There's a reason why they're lying. So find out what it is and help your child understand how they can achieve that motivation without lying. Now, it's helpful to consider why your child may be lying. So here are some reasons to avoid disappointing a parent. Right? For a teenager, not wanting to let their parents down can actually be a bigger motivator to lie than avoiding punishment. Of course, avoiding getting in trouble is one of the major reasons why children lie, maybe not doing their homework, going to a party where there aren't parents. And in fact, the research shows that the most frequent lies teenagers tell are about drinking, drugs, whether a party is being supervised, and riding with a drunk friend. Other reasons why your teen may be lying: to protect or defend their friends who might get in trouble, to avoid embarrassment about something that they've done that can make them look foolish, maybe failing a test or not getting invited to a party, to cover up their emotions because expressing their feelings might make them feel immature or uncool, to earn admiration from their peers by deceiving their parents, to make themselves look better by embellishing or exaggerating things, and to maintain control over privacy. Now, remember, teens become more and more private and withdrawn during teen years. They may lie to limit what the parent knows about their private life. Lying actually becomes almost like a power play with the teen in control about what the parent can know. Now, it's really important as we navigate this road to remember that our kids' job is to detach, right? Teens are trying to carve out spaces for themselves, to separate from you, the parents, and figure out their own identity. Their journey to freedom sometimes propels them to lie. If they feel that what they're doing is completely out of sync with your values or morals, lying may be their first reaction so that they don't disappoint you. So understanding why they're lying is important. Now let's look at what you can do. First and foremost, and there's a theme if you've been to any of my trainings, get out and stay out of the red zone. For those who have not heard about the red zone is when we're at high levels of stress. Think of stress as going from 0, no stress at all, to 10 out of 10, the most stressed you've ever been. And the psychological red zone happens when you're at a 7 out of 10 or higher. Right? A 7, an 8, a 9, or 10, you're in the psychological red zone. And in the psychological red zone, we don't always act or think rationally. When you're in the red zone, you can't be the person you want to be, right? You can't be the parent you want to be. You can't be the role model you want to be or the teacher you want to be for your child. So first and foremost is to get out and stay out of the red zone before you have a conversation with your child. And realize that lying is usually based in fear. So if you are in the red zone and you're acting in threatening ways, it's only going to push your child more into hiding. So as much as lying can be triggering and put us in the red zone, it's super important to approach your child calmly, right? So take the steps you need to get out and stay out of the red zone. So when you can stay calm, you can do your best to approach your child with a peaceful demeanor, which will create a safe space for truth telling. And if you want more training on get out of the red zone, you can go to ellavive.com. Parent Resources has a whole training on get out of the red zone. Something else for you to do: keep perspective. Keep perspective. Whatever you do, don't take it personally. When your teen lies, it's not an attack on you. when or if you lied to your parents during adolescence, you probably weren't doing it to hurt them. Teen lying is in most cases more about them than it is about you. Be respectful. Oh, I realize this can be tough, but everyone deserves respect. And by treating your teen with respect, despite your disappointment of their actions, what you're doing is you're modeling really important behavior of a good leader, right? You're communicating that you love them unconditionally and you want to support them while at the same time acknowledging that what they did was wrong. By acknowledging the lie without demoralizing or lecturing, you're sending a powerful message to your child that being dishonest won't get them what they want. So be respectful and don't shame them. Don't shame them in general, right? If your teen comes to you to tell you something that they've done that they know you don't want to hear, avoid shaming them. Because if your teen is worried that you might shame them for telling the truth, the next time they may resort to lying to avoid your reaction. Address the lie head on, right? When you talk, don't argue with your child about the lie, but just state the objective facts, right? You may not know the reason for the lie, but eventually your child might feel you in on it. So for example, the conversation might sound like this. Hey, I got a call from our neighbor. She said she saw you sneaking out of the window, and I noticed that you're falling asleep at the kitchen table this morning, but you told us that you were home all night. And then be quiet and see what they have to say. See what they have to say. So address it head on and find out the reason or the motivation for the lie and address that head on, right? Ask why they lied. You might see something like, hey, there are some things I'd like to understand about what's going on. So for example, let's say your child lies about school, right? Sometimes teens might lie about their homework or schoolwork because they just don't feel like doing it. But if your child has a habit of being untruthful about school, then you're going to want to dig deeper to find out what's going on. For example, it may be that they have maybe learning difficulties that need to be addressed. It may be a sign that your teen is giving up on school and needs support to help them reconnect at school. It may be an indication that they're having trouble socially and don't know how to deal with things. Right. So if you understand that that's the underlying cause, then you and your teen can work together with the school to address the situation. Don't necessarily punish. A lot of times parents, I think, kind of go to, I have to punish my child to prevent them from doing this. But research tells us that if you become threatening, it's actually going to reinforce their desire to hide things. Again, lying is usually based on fear. So you may want to ground them for lying, but that will actually likely result in their redoubling efforts to lie better next time. So instead, you do want to address the lie. You want to address the underlying cause, and you want to be what I call an emotional coach instead of kind of an over-the-top disciplinarian, right? So talk about how telling the lie can feel scary. Sorry, telling the truth can feel scary. And, we all feel scared sometimes, and that's okay. Right? Share how calming down and solving problems are really the keys to a successful life, and relate how lies can give the tempting illusion, right, of calm and avoiding problems, but in the long run, they actually create more stress and emotional chaos. Give them space. In general, give them space, right? Teens often lie because they're not getting what they need from their parents. When a parent-teen relationship is built on trust, right? When parents give adolescents the space that they need to make decisions on their own, teens are much, much more likely to volunteer information and not alter the truth. And parents enjoy the best relationships with teens when they embrace what I would call a balanced style of parenting. That means offering plenty of love. It also means having open and honest communication. Teens raised in this type of environment are encouraged to make decisions on their own and be independent. And guess what? They're less likely to lie frequently. Re-emphasize the importance of honesty. Now, you probably had the honesty conversation about 100 times when your child was younger, right? Maybe when toddler or preschool. And that's one reason why it's so frustrating right now, right? You thought you had this handled. However, you need to keep having this conversation. And you can talk about emphasizing the following. One, Lies can hurt other people, right? Ask them to see it from your side of view or from the side of someone else who they've lied to. It feels like a betrayal, and it makes the person lied to really less likely to trust the person who's lying. 2, it puts them in double jeopardy, right? Explain that when they lie, they're doubling their exposure to consequences. They could get in trouble twice, once for the thing that they're trying to cover up and once for lying. 3, remind them that it complicates things. Right? Explain that when they lie, they have to keep track of the lies in order to keep from getting caught. Just one lie can lead to many lies. Right? And that can cause fear and anxiety and all kinds of stress. And then 4, remind them, especially early in their teen years, that lies lead to a lack of trust on your part. If they're lying about small things when they're 13, they reduce their chances of being trusted with big things like driving a car or going to a party when they get older. Model honesty. Your teenager sees and hears way more than you think. If they see and hear you telling white lies all the time, then that increases the chance that they're going to do it too. Lying can snowball, right? You be comfortable with little lies. Sometimes that can then lead to being comfortable with telling big lies. So next time you're on the phone and you're about to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'd love to help you out, but I'm busy right now. When your child is right there on the couch with you and can see you are not busy, do the right thing. Be honest, and your child will take notice. Understand it's a process. It's a process. If your teen has gotten into the habit of lying, it may take some time to get them back on the honesty track. Be patient, be loving, and be calm. It may not happen overnight because the behavior probably wasn't created overnight, but establish reasonable outcomes for lying, right? Take away screens if you need to, move up a curfew, restrict their use of car, make sure that you're having this conversation as to why it's important, and most importantly, how they can earn that back. Listen more than you talk. Listen more than you talk. All children, they want to do the right thing, but sometimes they need the freedom to make their own mistakes. So make it safe for them to explore this with you. Right? You can say, I know these things happen sometimes. Can you tell me how this happened? And then listen. Explore what they learned, what they might do differently next time. You don't have to fix anything, right? Just be a steady presence and give them space to figure things out. Avoid angry interrogations. Getting angry and interrogating your child is unlikely to encourage your teen to be honest with you, right? Your teen is likely to become more secretive, defensive, and stubborn if you interrogate them. So instead, try connecting with them. Let them have their say. You don't have to agree with their position. Just try and hold back on what you think so the two of you can talk about the situation without it turning into a fight. Reward truth-telling. Reward truth-telling, right? Provided remorse has been shown, because we don't want to encourage psychopathic behavior, let lesser consequences or no consequence be the reward for honesty. I always tell my kids, be honest, tell me what happened, and then we can handle it, right? They know that being honest is really important. Do they lie sometimes? Absolutely. But they also know that I will reward them for telling the truth, because if they lie and then I find out they lie, that is even more stressful, right? In my house, that's an even bigger situation. And then finally, negotiate boundaries to reduce dishonesty. Negotiating rules and boundaries is one of the most effective ways to reduce both conflict and dishonesty. And one of the reasons that teens lie is because they think that we won't listen to them. If they believe that the rules are unfair and there's no room to negotiate or make exceptions, then in their minds, dishonesty is the only choice. But if we give them a bit of freedom, they often step up their game. So when your teen wants a later curfew or an exception to some rule, listen to them. Try to understand what is important to them in this instance, right? What's at stake for them? And then think about what's at stake for you and see if you can find a compromise. You are still the parent, and this is a great way to have problem-solving thinking for your teen. Now, obviously, we can't always find a compromise, but if there's any room, if there's never any room for negotiation, then their teen's going to believe that there's no point in asking, and they're just going to resort to lying. I had a conversation with my daughter just yesterday. Actually, I was saying to me, one of the worst things that she could do would be to lie and sneak out of the house. And she said to me, she goes, "Well, Mom, if I had to go somewhere in the middle of the night, I would probably just tell you why I had to go." And I thought, and talk to you about it. And I thought, isn't that beautiful? Now, she might actually sneak out. I hope she doesn't. But the fact that she knows that she can come to me and have a conversation, and I'm going to work with her. If there's a reason why she thinks she needs to, go out of the house at 1 a.m., I'm at least going to listen to her. And if it's something I agree with, I might even let her do it. I don't know what that would be, going to save a friend or something like that. I'd probably go with her. But those negotiating boundaries and letting your child be part of the conversation and part of the problem solving process is really helpful. So keep in mind, this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. When teens lie, it's usually nothing to worry about. Most lies are harmless, so try not to make too much of them. Avoid labeling your teen as a liar. Labels are very powerful, right? Instead, focus on keeping things in perspective and staying connected with your teen. Don't take it personally, but rather see it as normal behavior in a teen. That's more about your teen asserting their freedom than trying to hurt you. If you can focus on dealing with the reason of why your teen felt like they had to lie, your teen is much more likely to feel comfortable about being honest with you next time. So if you'd like more information, you can go to elevive.com, elevate your mindset, thrive in life. We provide mind skills training for teens and parents of teens, and we have all kinds of resources at elevive.com. Thanks so much.
All right.
Oh, I was going to jump on. I was like, is he there?
No, I was scribbling down like a madman.
Look at you at the Fairmont. Where are you?
Did I give it away? I just snuck off from the spa and I found a little lobby room over here there that no one's at. So I just kind of took over. Not the lobby though. Where do they have the little meetings? What do they call them?
The meeting area?
No, it's got a special name for it. It's going to drive me crazy now. But I'm in conference, like in one of the conference centers. And one of us is frozen. I'm hoping it's not me. I'm hoping it's you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And she's back.
Is it better?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
I have like 3 different internets in my house, so I tried another.
The internet's always crazy everywhere these days. Apparently, some places underwater right now. There's floods. Are you following this?
The Burning Man.
I think Alabama. I don't know. I heard people talking at the pool. I don't really know what's going on, but
I've asked you 5 times, but where are you now? Not just what hotel, what town?
Oh, I'm in Scottsdale.
Oh, you are? Okay. So you're home.
Yep, I'm home. I just came over here for a little Labor Day rest. I like to rest on my Labor Day.
That's nice. I had clients today, so.
You never stop. That's what I wanted.
Well, I do sports psychology, so my athletes are in season now.
Oh, awesome. So I actually that was one of the things I was writing down here. Would you be comfortable sharing like a client win? I know you can't share maybe certain things, but like just the type of results that you typically get and why parents come to you, whether it's an athlete and they're in their sports season now, or anything else that I know people come to you for so many different things. But I think it's always fun to hear those big transformations and breakthroughs that you get for kids and their families.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I'd love to talk about that. Let's see. When you said that, the first thing that came to mind is I had a client today. So when I work with clients, I typically do 8 sessions.
Okay.
And we have between session calls, and the parents can reach out to me whenever, the kids can reach out to me, and we go on this journey together. And usually within 8 sessions, the majority, and by that I don't just mean like over 50%. I mean the majority of people after 8 sessions, the athletes, the students have gotten the skills that they need. The parents have the skills they need. They become their own coach. Sometimes I need a couple more, but I have a client right now who we did 6 sessions. And this was a client who played 2 varsity sports and was like debilitated with stress for these sports and like couldn't function, was trying not to actually play the games because so stressed out. And in 6 sessions, she had transformed so much that I was like, oh, well, we'll just wait until you need me, because she had all of the skills. So I saw her today for the 7th session. I haven't seen her for like 4 or 5 months. And it was unbelievable to hear the same situations that she was facing last year, she's facing this year. And yet she has a totally different perspective. She has a totally different interaction with her coach and her teammates. And she has a totally different performance ability because she was able to control this instead of letting it control her. And it was so great. So we're kind of, we're going over some things. I taught her for some new things, but I mean, like the transformation in just 6 sessions is incredible. So that's what I love about it. There's nothing wrong with therapy. There's a time and place for therapy. I'm a psychologist, so obviously I believe in therapy. But what I do with my clients is provide specific skills so that they learn the skill and then they go out and practice, and then they come back and they're like, it worked. Great. We'll move on. It didn't work. We figure out why. And, we keep figuring out until it works. But the transformations that happen are so significant and so quick and so impactful, which is why working on a Sunday is absolutely fun to me.
Yeah. No, it's so amazing. And before you did this and pointed at your brain there, I was thinking, like, how much do you feel like of these issues is it's mindset? It's changing your thoughts, changing your thinking. Is it 100, like it all comes back, all roads lead to Mecca, and I need to be thinking better thoughts. I need to have more confidence, believe in myself. Just curious on that.
Well, I mean, I'm a psychologist, so, I think a lot of it has to do with our mindset. I mean, I work with athletes, so it's not that they have to, can stop practice and learning their skills. You need to keep doing that, but everything starts up here. So even if you have the skills, if this is getting in your way, you can't perform as an athlete. Let's say your child studies really hard for a math test. I feel like I talk about math tests a lot, math and chemistry tests in my practice. But they may have studied it all. It may be in there, but when they're in that psychological red zone, when they're in that high levels of distress, they can't access it because their subconscious basically feels like it's drowning. If you were drowning, could you do pre-calculus or calculus computations? Of course not, even if you had the ability when you were out of the red zone. So learning these skills of how to make your mind work for instead of against you allows, whether it's my athletes to be better performing their sports, whether it's parents to be able to apply the concepts that they know they want to do, but they can't always do it, whether it's, I don't know, an executive who's making, $100 million deals and decisions. We need to learn how to get out of our own way.
What are some kind of like techniques or skills that just practical thinking here for when kids are struggling with anxiety or stress that they can do to get them really, because whether it's sports or math and chemistry tests or businessmen and
social situations or
what are some, do you have any that you do in your own life or that you like are your favorite to recommend when people find themselves in that red zone?
So I have a technique I call ACT. I never call it ACT in front of children because
more stress.
Do not decrease stress. But ACT is apply your awareness. Be aware from that. So when we're talking about the psychological red zone, it's when you're just stressed or any emotion you don't want is at high level. So from 0, no distress at all, no anger at all, no anxiety at all, to 10 out of 10, the most stressed, the most angry, the most anxious you've ever been. The red zone happens at a 7 out of 10 or higher. And we don't think rationally. We don't act rationally. We can't perform So the first step is being aware of where you are on that scale. Like thinking about it, how many times in looking back have you been like, oh yeah, I kind of overreacted on that, whether it's, blowing up at your kids or, avoiding or procrastinating. There's certain things that we do when we're in the red zone. So first, being aware that you're there. Then the C of ACT is changing your state. It's really hard to rationalize yourself out of the red zone. Why? Because instead of your frontal lobe, rational part of your brain, when we're in the red zone, it's our limbic system. It's the fight or flight mechanism. Again, basically your subconscious thinks it is drowning. So when you are in the red zone, it's really, someone tells you just calm down, you can't do it. If your child's in the red zone, telling them to just calm down, it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to work because they're not processing information with that rational part of the brain. So C is change your state. What can you do to get that number down? It could be some kind of physical activity, jumping on the bed, doing push-ups, sit-ups, squats. I had a client once who was like 10 out of 10, convulsingly crying. Anything I say could not be heard because she was so in the red zone. And I was on a Zoom, the mom was there, the child was there, and I was right here. And so I said, stand up. And we ran in place 45 seconds. That's it. What it does is it releases biochemicals so that number goes down. It's not that your life changes, but you change your state. And then the T is transform your perspective. How can you see things in a different way? And so going through that process allows anyone to be able to get out of the red zone and be able to think more rationally so that they can make a better decision.
The red zone, it all comes back to staying out of that stinking red zone as much as you can, getting out and staying out. It really is true. And now that I'm aware of it from having these conversations all the time, I see it everywhere. And it's like, oh, that's a red zone decision. That's a red zone decision. That's not, they're going to regret that. And then trying to, work on that in my own life. It's so great. Yeah. I feel like the red zone modeling, because like all the talk is great and say all the right things, but you got to live it so that your kids can see it, is the other common one. And then that communication of having transparency. And so went back to this, well, I want to go back to that girl in a second, but for the lying aspect of things, one of the things you were saying is how important trust is. What are some things that parents can do to help build trust with their teenagers? If they have a pretty average trusting relationship, or if they've maybe have had some situations come up where trust has been betrayed and lost.
And I guess the question is the trust betrayed and lost by the parent or by the child? Because what I see a lot is as parents, we can justify why we lie. As people, we can justify why we lie, right? Most people don't lie because they're bad people. Most people lie because they're trying not to get in trouble, or they don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or right. But what I noticed a lot is that, and I've seen it in my own life, and realizing, what I need to, like, what I was saying was not actually truthful. So being aware as a parent, you're not telling the truth all the time. I was watching the training. Gosh, I love listening to myself. And I meant to Google, but there's some statistic about like the average person lies. I can't even remember, like 15 times a day. I'm making that up, so don't quote me on that. But I mean, like, it's an action to me. It's a huge number. But then when you look at everything you say, do I look good today? Yeah, you do. You know what I mean? Like, just that, like, you're not meaning to do it. So going back to how can you build trust? The best way to build trust is to be trustful yourself. And when you lie, when you are not honest, to come clean. We're going back to modeling. That's truly the best thing. And then when it comes to your children, asking them, giving them permission and a safe place where they can say, you know what, I wasn't completely honest. And it was interesting because I recorded that training a bit ago, and I had an event or two with one of my children not being honest. And I will say, before I, started doing red zone training, everything, I'm sure I would have lost it on my child, like just blown up and being like, rah, 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 rah. But I stayed out of the red zone. I knew that she had a positive reason for lying. That doesn't mean the lie is okay, but I knew in her mind she was justifying it somehow. And so I simply said, I know that you're a good person. Help me understand your decision-making. Like, help me understand how you decided that was a good idea. And we just work through it. But instead of getting angry with her, instead of yelling at her, instead of me reacting to her in the red zone, I stayed in the green zone, or at least the yellow zone. And I was able to have a conversation with her. Because remember, not only is it easy to get in the red zone when our kids lie, but we also have to remember one of our other trainings is the teenage brain. And that teenage brain, a change in your voice, even a look of concern can be interpreted as you're judging them, you're angry, you're upset. And so really being hyper aware of how you are coming across, your intention is to have a relationship where you can be open. Is that how your child is perceiving it?
Yeah. And you hear about that in relationships all the time, where one person's saying one thing, but it's being interpreted and heard in a completely different way than maybe it's meant. And that's so powerful. I was curious, back to the athlete you were talking about earlier, who went from being just anxious and stressed about performing on the court or on the field to coming so far. And you shared a little bit that was in 6 sessions, I think 6 or 8 sessions. What was like the big epiphany? Is there like, do you see like an epiphany moment? Is it a realization? Is it something that is worked on kind of reinforcing? Like, what was the change that had to be made for her in particular in order to see that big change in her life?
Yeah, there are 2 major things, I think. One is realizing, well, 3. Okay. One is realizing when we're in the red zone because we think differently. 2 is being aware that what puts us in the red zone is not events. It's what we say to ourselves about events. And I have some exercises I do with my clients. So I'm not just saying this, but they can kind of experience that. So if, if they fail a test, they're thinking maybe, oh my gosh, my parents are going to kill me. I'm never going to get into college. I'm a failure. But really, one failed test is probably not going to determine your future. I'm not suggesting that, you encourage your children to fail their test, but again, it's their interpretation. It's their thoughts about the event as opposed to the event itself. That is super powerful. And then I talk about this concept of cognitive distortions, which are cognitive just means thinking. Distortions means inaccurate, an inaccurate way of interpreting things. And we all use cognitive distortions, but when it's happening in our mind, usually we act as if what's going on up here is actual and factual, right? Very rarely do we take a thought and say, is this accurate and helpful? But that's what I teach my clients to do. So I'll give an example of a cognitive distortion that's super prevalent with teens and also with parents, and that's mind reading. Mind reading is when you assume you know what other people think without having sufficient evidence. So for my athletes, it may be they're mind reading their coach. Their coach, they make a mistake and they think their coach is going to, never play them again. Or if a college scout is there, they're never going to want me to come play with at their school. I have a basketball player who came in for sports, but when we were exploring more, it turned out a lot of social anxiety too. Just understanding this concept of when he walks down the hall in high school, he constantly is in the red zone because he thinks people are judging him. And he realized that he doesn't actually know what other people are thinking. 1. 2, the other cool part about mind reading is not only do we not know what other people think, but we only get upset by what people think, what we think people think. It's a little abstract.
Okay, hold on. I'm a dream within a dream now. Okay.
Right. We only get upset when it's something that is our own fear. When it's something that's our own concern. I'll give an example. Think of something, I don't know if we've done this before. Think of something that you're totally confident in, like 100% confident in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, I don't know. So I'm going to give you one. Are you confident in your ability to walk?
Pretty good. Yeah. 100%.
Like not in 6-inch stilettos. I live in Chicago. You don't have this problem, but we have a lot of ice here. Yep. Maybe not on the ice, but in general, you're confident in your ability to walk. Yep. So if someone said to you, you're not a very good walker, would that hurt your feelings?
Exactly. No.
Right. Yeah. Because you're like, you might be like, I wonder why they're saying that, or, that's weird, but it wouldn't hit to your core because it's not your own fear. So I teach this to my kids, but I'm going to say it to the parents too. Parents, you are mind reading your children. You are mind reading other parents, and realize that 1, you don't know what they're actually thinking. And 2, even if you did, it only hurts if it's your own fear. And the beauty is you can't change what people think of you, but you can address your own fears. And so that's where that power actually comes from.
I love that one. I love that so much. That's actually something that I talk about at schools.
Okay, hold on.
I talk about in the seventh grade. You know, I realized that if I wasted all my time worrying about what everyone else thought about me, you know, that I couldn't make it as a basketball player, then I would never get what I wanted out of my own life. And the thing at that age, and it continues for sure into adulthood, which is so funny to see, is everyone's going around, just like the couple examples of kids you were talking about, worrying about what everyone else thinks about them. Oh, my pimple. Oh, my big nose. Oh, the high dress. But the reality is, at that same time, the people that you're worrying about you are over there worrying about what you're thinking about them. And everyone's just so focused on themselves, where I like to have the kind of joke around, like, who do you think you are that people are going around thinking about you all the time? You're not that special. You're not that important. They got their own problems, their own issues, and they're worried about what you are thinking about them. And I find that to be such a freeing thing. Some of my friends who have made it real big in entertainment, that's one kind of commonality I find, is like, we can be out at the grocery store and music's on and we're dancing around, and not for attention, but like just not caring what other people think. And it's such a happier and better place to be when you could just be yourself. But like you said, you got to be confident in those things, even if they aren't maybe the big strengths, because if you're confident, like you said, you could come and say something mean to me about lots of different things, and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And like, I literally would not care. Now there's a few things I'm insecure about. You know, if you said that, I might be like, oh, okay, now I'm bothered and I don't want to hear it. So I always love hearing that. And I think adults do it the same thing. So mind reading is what is your term for it. I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, if I'm a parent, and for our parents watching this, and they want to just full on dive deep into learning all these different things that they can, what would be the first book they should start with of yours? And I think I know which one it is. And then outside of you, who are some other thought leaders or books or podcasts or YouTube channels or whatever the people are using these days that you would recommend? Because I've just been going down a rabbit hole of authors and just people in this space, because we're going to be bringing a bunch of them on to be doing Facebook Lives and having fun. So my guess for your book is The Red Zone.
This one's great.
Okay, what's this one?
Yeah, The Red Zone.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, this son.
I know this is your angel time.
There we go.
It's always right around, angel time.
This
the emotional lives of teenagers.
Lisa DeMore. So she's a psychologist. I met her. Excellent. So this is the emotional lives of teenagers, raising connected, capable, and compassionate adolescents. She's got another book that's really Untangled. Oh, so good. And just like, it's readable. Some books you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the bandwidth for this, but it's super readable and great advice.
Okay. And you met this gal? You met Lisa?
I did, yeah. She came to an event here in the Chicago area.
Awesome. I love it. And what about, is there any?
Okay. I'm sorry. Can we just stop for a second? I've now tried 4 different internets, and I'm on my phone now. It's still funky. So I'm not sure.
Do you think it's you, or do we think it's me?
Oh, I don't know. I
thought it was you until all of a sudden, as 1 second ago, it said I had some unstable. So I think it might be both of us.
Or internet unstable.
What's that?
Mentally unstable or internet was
both.
Unstable?
I think it's you are an unstable person and your Wi-Fi is about the same.
Your computer, like, you're really unstable right now.
I would love it if my computer gave me that alert. That would be maybe what I need to hear today. Okay, so
go get another massage. That's what it's saying.
I know, right? It wasn't hard enough. I needed a deeper tissue, but that's, I'm just grateful that I was able to get any rub down. So, okay, so do you, I was thinking about this as I was listening to the lesson and the training online and how to handle it. And it makes total sense. If your kid lies and you punish them, then they're going to be like, well, I don't want to take any chances when it comes to this. And I need to learn to lie better so that I don't get punished, instead of being like, you know what, you maybe didn't do what you came up short this time, messed up. you weren't honest in the beginning, but you came around the opportunity, and for that, I'm going to reward you. Do you have any personal anecdotes with your daughters through their teen years you've had to deal with this, or were they pretty, I guess, straight and narrow when it came to being honest with mom and dad?
I went on video to see if it was my video again. Well, I mean, just recently we had a couple of experiences.
Okay.
And I tell you, I want, and I said to her, I said, I know you did this for a positive reason. And when I heard her reasoning, I was like, I get that. It wasn't the right thing to do, but I could get her thinking process. And that's super important that we help our children. We want to teach them right from wrong, but we also want to help them think in a way that's going to help them. If we just tell them what to do, if we tell them you're wrong, you're punished, don't ever lie again, that's not going to be as helpful as, again, take me through your thinking. And the thinking on this one was, our situation is so, so challenging. So Jesse, you know this, but my husband is on a ventilator and he's completely paralyzed. And he's been on a ventilator for 7.5 years. It's very challenging. And it was one of my daughter's birthdays, and it was just too much for her. I was traveling, probably wasn't very helpful. And so she went out with a friend kind of in the middle of the night. And like, I could understand her thinking. It wasn't the right decision, but to listen to her, to empathize with her, I think was very helpful for her. She knew what she did was wrong. I didn't have to tell her that. And then I could help her think of other ways to be able to achieve the same goal, which was, she felt like she just had to get out of the house because it's a little challenging here. How could she get relief emotionally in a way that was healthy and safe for her? So I was able to take her through that process because I was able to listen, because I was able to empathize. I didn't agree with her decision, and she knew that. I don't know that she really agreed with her decision, but it was kind of the best thing that she could think to do at that particular time.
And through having that honest conversation, that's just a great opportunity for you guys to build your relationship and build trust, like we were talking about.
Yeah. Because then she told me like a couple of days later where she was going. And I was like, and it was, not necessarily an optimal place where I was excited for her to go. But I was like, okay, I appreciate you telling me that that's, those are your proposed plans. Now let's talk about it. But I think if I had gotten upset with her and not listened to her, my guess is she wouldn't have told me, what her actual plans were for the, 2 days later or, a week later. I'm quite certain she would have lied about that.
It's I don't know. The thing I'm thinking about as well as we talk about this is, I feel like it's a lot harder to lie today than it was back in our day, because your exact location is known at all times. You're tracking it. You got a text message thread to say like, you did say this, you didn't say that. Like, how are people still thinking they're going to get away with lies? Isn't it? Don't you feel like it's a lot harder?
Well, and apparently you can change your location on your iPhone, which I didn't know, but I learned also
really?
that.
Is that what they're doing now?
Well, it said she was still home and she was not. So
I know sometimes kids will like leave their phone in like the mailbox or leave it somewhere in the house.
Maybe she did that. Yeah, I don't know. But I was like, I know you're not home. So
I'm here. I don't see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about hope before and how important hope is. And when it comes to self-harm and it comes to, self-deletion and these different things, one of the biggest things that makes such a big impact is a kid just knowing that there's hope. How can a parent or an adult inspire hope in a teenager who's feeling hopeless, given whatever their situation is?
Yeah, and we want to instill hope without minimizing what your child is going through, or even what you're going through. I mean, a lot of times we'll say things because we want people to feel better, but we need to make sure that our desire to help people feel better doesn't sound like we're negating their emotions. So for, a child who, I don't know, is going through a breakup or wasn't invited to a party, or we were just talking about, I'm doing an Ask Dr. E event every quarter now in my town. So if you were in Lake Forest, Illinois, let me know. I'll try to get there.
Yes.
But one of the things that we were talking about, the two parents who are hosting this was saying, what do you do when your child doesn't get on the team, and that has been their focus, like their whole sense of identity? And it's not that big of a deal, because here's the thing, it's a ginormous deal. Now, your child may not be an athlete, but do they want a role in the theater? Did they not do as well in their tests? Whatever it is, you want to empathize with them and then instill hope by saying something like, I know it's really tough right now. Either talk about what's one thing you can do to help yourself feel better right now, right? Giving them that, not telling them what to do, but helping them start to think about that. You can remind them that things will get better. It's tough now, and things, that things will get better. And, reminding them of other times in the past where it felt like, nothing's, it's always, doom and gloom, and then something good happens. So bringing that in, having specific examples. And then another way to instill hope, and I think we talked about this last time, is have regular conversations about what are you looking forward to, right? There's a rose, thorn, bud. I can't even think of it.
Yes,
Rose, thorn,
right.
bud, which is a super easy way to do this with your kids. And you can start when, they're 3, 4, 5. Rose, tell me something good that happened in your day-to-day. Thorn, tell me something that wasn't so great in your day-to-day. And then the follow-up question can be, what can you do to make it better? Or then another bud is, what are you looking forward to? So even though, you didn't get onto the soccer team, what's something that you're looking forward to? Those questions, without telling them it will get better, you should have hope, those questions will start their subconscious to scan the environment to determine, what am I looking forward to? You're not saying, are you looking forward to something? It's not a yes or no. What are you looking forward to? Nothing. And remember, if they say nothing or I don't know, the follow-up is always, if you did know, what would it be?
Yeah. I love that. If you did, what do you think?
I know you don't know, but if you did know, what might it be?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Rose, thorn, bud.
Yeah. So we do the good, the not so good, and then what are you looking forward to?
Yeah. How important are the questions we ask ourselves, Dr. E?
Our subconscious will take a question and scan the environment to answer it. And it's a subconscious process. So you want to make sure you're asking the questions you want the answers for. Example, if you wake up, the alarm goes off and you're like, how much is this day going to, not be great today? Guess what? Your subconscious will scan the environment to answer just how bad your day is going to be. How much is my boss going to annoy me today? You will find out. Ask questions for yourself that you want the answers to, and ask questions to your children that you want them to determine. What are you grateful for? Right? That's a great question. You're not saying, are you grateful? What are you grateful for? And starting to get that mind going. Our subconscious is a sponge. Put a sponge in water, it absorbs water, right? Wring it out, put the sponge in milk. What does it do? It absorbs the milk. No sponge says, I don't do dairy. Right? Our subconscious is like that. And whatever we expose our subconscious to, whatever we expose our children's subconscious to, it's more likely to absorb. Another great example, this isn't what you're asking, but I can't help but say this, news.
What is it?
The news.
Oh, yes.
The stat out of Harvard that shows that watching the news, even in the background for 3 minutes in the morning, increases your chance of having a bad day, of having a red zone day by 27%. How many people have the news on in the background as they're getting breakfast ready? And not just for you, but for your children. The only time I ever had the news on in the morning was when I was on it, like literally. And even that, I wouldn't even keep it on. I would, because sometimes I would do a live feed. I'm in Chicago, a live feed in New York. I would actually be home before my feed was on.
Oh, really?
Okay? So I know, it's so great. It was so great. I would be hair and makeup. I'd be home, wake up the girls. I'd be, and then I go to the gym. But anyway, even then, I would not have that TV on, even like, sorry, but even like Today's Show, Good Morning America, that are supposed to be, more upbeat. They still have they have horrible news stories on. Don't put that in your subconscious. Don't put that in your children's subconscious. Even teenagers, they don't need that.
Yeah, we're just drawn to that negativity, whether it's a car crash or a train wreck or the romper stomper. I don't know if you heard about that one, a girl at a country concert in a romper and she got in a fight. It's millions and millions of views. This girl's getting all types of attention. Everyone knows about it. And it's like, why? This is a conversation I was having earlier. Like, why is this something that people should know about? And the smart ones,
I don't know about it.
and that the smart ones shouldn't know about it. This is actually something I've been thinking about all day. So I'm so glad that you said this. I was thinking about how I have these kind of systems in my life that kind of help me navigate and feel better about myself, healthier, all these things. So for me, there's some important things like a morning routine and a night routine. And, for sugar, I love sugar. So because I love it, I only will let myself have a little bit on Friday. I'll have my little Starbucks, my little bar, and I'll have a Cold Stone if I'm feeling crazy in the evening, right? I look forward to it all week. It's amazing. There's certain things with food that it's certain hours, a window of hours that I can eat, and other than that, I try to respect that because I'm going to feel better. And it's what's in the best interest of my physical health and my mental health. And so I have all these different things going on, but then with the phone, it can just totally take over my life easily with emails, text messages, YouTube. I could start going and being like, oh, this is interesting, and I want to learn more and more. And it's like I'm not respecting my mind and my thoughts and my attention with the same level of vigor that I am all these other areas of my life. And I'm like we're talking about, the mind and our thoughts are, and the questions we ask ourselves are one of the most important aspects that all of these kids that you're working with, sports or not sports, with anxiety, stress, and performance based and how they're doing. And so it's like, you got to get that piece together. And I think that's one that goes overlooked, especially with kids, because we don't necessarily have the discipline or the ability to resist how much of a dopamine hit it is to get a notification, to have someone comment on your thing, to see how many people are looking at and liking your stuff. So I guess kind of on since we're wrapping up here on a last question, what would be your guideline for how much time you think kids should spend on their phone? I know we've talked about this, but if you were going to put I know every person has a different thing. I know we like to put the phones away in the cubby at night in the kitchen and aren't allowed in the room. But do you have like a ballpark of like what you think is like a reasonable good amount for a child to have a healthy life, to be on their phone, whether it's for messages or apps or different things?
Well, I think it depends what they're doing. I would love to say a half hour, but I don't know that is feasible for a lot of people. I no more than an hour, truly. They're not going to be missing anything. And the way that you present this to your children is important too. So you are the parent, and how can you get into a conversation as opposed to telling your child what to do? So asking questions like, how do you feel when you are on social media? And listen, it may be good, it may not be good. What do you think would be helpful for you? Do you think it's more helpful or more harmful to you? And just start to ask these questions so that they can start to think for themselves. When I do this in session, the majority of the kids will identify they're on their phone too much, that it actually causes them more stress. I just had someone Thursday who decided what he really needed to do was to be able to set a timer, because he just, you kind of get lost in it.
Yep.
While he was in my session, he pulls out his phone, he downloads one of the apps, and he set a timer for 30 minutes. So trying to do it in a way where they, it's Socratic questioning, where you ask the questions and you kind of steer them the way that you want to, but in a way that's curious, in the way that really, I find it fascinating to hear, what young people are saying about how important it is to them and what's good. But I will tell you, the majority of times when I give them an open, non-judgmental place to talk, time after time after time, they identify it's not helpful. They identify they would benefit from reducing the amount of time. And when I help them do that, they're actually very grateful. My oldest is in college. Maybe I told you the story, but she told me, she said she stopped getting on, not Snapchat, I guess Instagram. I don't know. One of them. I'm not a big social media person. And I was like, inside I'm like, and when I asked her why, it's because the feeds that she was getting were really like traumatizing for her. She had been going through a tougher time when she was younger, and she maybe was looking up certain things that now the algorithms were still giving her these things. And so it's really upsetting for her. So she just deleted her account. I didn't tell her to do that, but we have, I've asked enough questions to allow her to think in ways of problem solving as opposed to telling her what to do. Because when we tell our kids what to do, they aren't thinking for themselves.
Yeah. Oh, good for her. That's so good to hear.
I know.
It's for me, I feel like one of the best things to ever happen was for me to go around and start speaking this attitude is everything message, right? And because it makes me be held accountable. And I feel like what you said earlier about the red zone is you're like, oh, I wouldn't have handled it this way, a number of years back before I got going. And do you feel like kind of learning this and teaching it and helping other people with these different things has improved the quality of your life and the parent that you are?
Absolutely. The quality of how happy I am, my quality of my relationships. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, it's like I used to joke with my husband that I was a much better wife because I would, have these husbands who come in. Never forget, I had a husband come in and he was talking about his wife, and he's like, yeah, I travel all week and when I come home, she's got a list of stuff for me to do. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, why do that? Oh my God, I never thought about not doing that. I can change a light bulb. Why am I asking him to change a light bulb? And just like hearing that and coaching on that allowed me to then be, better. So, we're all works in progress. We can all be better, but, being aware of these concepts. And, I often say if there was a camera following you around 24/7, and I'm glad there isn't, but if there was, how would you react? How would you maybe react differently? And so if we can kind of put that parameter in our mindset, not out of paranoia, but like, am I really being the person who I want to be? Because here's the thing, your children are watching you just like a camera is. Yeah. So remembering that, and hopefully that will impact your behavior, that will not only help your child be happier and healthier, but will help you be happier and healthier.
So good. Yeah, the world needs more Dr. E's who can have these conversations and get them off of their devices. Because I feel like I could be like talking to all these kids and be like, hey, all these things that you say that you're struggling with and you want to turn around in your life, I can cure about 90% of them. Just give me your phone. And I have the negative belief that most of them will be like, well, no, I got to have my phone. Like, I can't be out this. I don't want to be the only one. When that's the source of them being anxious, of them being stressed, of them having bad time management, of them not getting enough sleep, comparing themselves to other people, all of these things. So I like that, having that conversation, kind of leading them like, well, what do you think? What's good? What's bad? And
always start with what's good, because if you start with what's bad, it's going to feel like, here goes my parent telling me what's wrong.
Steer me, yeah.
What's good? Like you're on, obviously there's good stuff. What's good? I mean, my youngest is, she loves dogs. And I am not a social media person at all. It's just like, I don't have enough time in my day. And so to me, like TV and social media, I'm fine with cutting out. But I'll tell you, she has all these dog videos. And sometimes when she's looking at them, she's showing to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could see how I could get
all day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it is like, I'm pretty into the old man who's like, oh, get the tickety talks out of here. But then they show them to you and you're like, well, go to another one. And then it's an infinite scroll. And you're like, well, how do we ever get anything done around here? So Dr. E, Angel Time, real quick, elevive.com. What age kids do you work with? Do you work with all ages and husbands and wives, grandmas, cats, dogs?
No, yeah, I mean, so I would say the youngest I work with is probably like a mature 10-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I work with younger? Yeah, but it's probably not the best. Although, I mean, I've worked with younger, but it tends to be kids who are a little